Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing?
How's it going, everybody?
All right, my name's Steve,
And I'm Jay.
and I'm here with Jay. And all right, great. We might be on a bit of a delay. I am actually overseas, and so this is, I guess, it's called a road game when you're thinking about sports. So I'm in sunny Barbados, but the sun is set. It's hot as hell over here, but totally happy to come to you guys and give the latest comic news on Comics Asylum Live.
Absolutely, it's been one heck of a time for
So
comics.
Jay, how's your week been?
It's been good, Steve. It's been good. Lots of things happening. I got a little bit of a con plague. Coming back from the States and Comic Con. So getting over a bit of a bit, but I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. How's Barbados, Steve? We got a bit of a delay, guys. Obviously, the internet's kind of in and out. But yeah, today, Steve, I think we're here to talk about what's going on in the MCU. A lot of developments happening. Very exciting, but at the same time, kind of. I got to tell you, there are a lot of questions happening in the MCU right now. And of course, Deadpool is just breaking records all over the place.
It looks like we're having.
Yeah, we're having a few technical issues here, guys. But as I said, Deadpool's been killing the box office right now. I got a chance to see it. I'm hoping Steve got a chance to see it, and I guess we'll find out from him in a little bit. Let's say hi to everybody who's in the chat right now. Rhea Black, what's going on, Rhea? How you doing tonight? Good to see you. Always good to see Rhea. Steve, we're back, or
It looks like it. I'm having some technical difficulties on my end. The Wi-Fi is not as strong down here, so
that's
hopefully
okay.
it doesn't cause any more issues.
All right. Well, we're back for sure. Mitch is in the chat. What's going on, my friend? Frankie Rivera. How are you doing, brother? Good to see you. So Steve, I was just telling the audience that we're expecting big things from the MCU this year. A lot of surprise announcements, a lot of big developments happening in the MCU space. Did you happen to catch Deadpool yet?
Yes, I was able to catch it before I hopped on the plane. To be honest with you, it's a crazy film. Like it's basically, if you love comic books, it's almost like Prawn for you guys. Like it's got everything that every comic book fan of Deadpool and Wolverine is expecting. And if you've ever followed any of the movies from the MCU's inception, canceled movies, movies that were talked about, movies that we've seen, they touch on it.
Yep. Some great callbacks to old pre MCU movies. Some which were a lot of fun. And a lot of Easter eggs too. A heck of a lot of Easter eggs, and some people would call them glimpses into the future of the MCU, which is true. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of great nods, and I really do suggest everybody watch it. It's a lot of fun. Is it the best movie in the world? No, it's not. But is it entertaining, fun, and do you get as a comic book fan from any age? Will you enjoy this film? Sure. No, it will definitely tickle you in some part. Even if it's just for a couple of laughs, some cheap thrills. It definitely is one of those films which could definitely give you it's worth your money to go see in the theaters in my opinion.
Oh, definitely. It's like the greatest fan film ever with like the best budget ever. It definitely delivers on all of those points. And if you're a big fan of both Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, they bring it. They totally bring it.
Yeah, 100%. I was very happy to see. a lot of different faces return to and reenact their roles. But at the same time, I was also very happy to see that they cast well. I think that's really what it really is. They cast well. Um, some some really surprising cameos. I was actually very surprised at a few of them. But I really did enjoy getting surprised. Those wow moments, those oohs and ahs. It was really great to see that. And again, digging back into the past of Marvel as a film, in films, it was great. Even if it wasn't part of the MCU proper, it was still great to see a lot of these properties at least getting the nod and the acknowledgement from the MCU during the time. Um, I was very, very happy to see, I guess, if you will, Steve, almost like a bookend to many of these characters because we're moving into another phase of MCU now. We're moving into the next generation, if you will. Um, and I think they really are, especially because of what was happening in this film. I think they really are putting a lot of stock in Fantastic Four. I think Fantastic Four is their next big jumping point, and I think that's it's going to be something to watch. For this next one for obvious reasons, right? That's the second part of today's big talking point, right? Like the Fantastic Four. Um, Huge news over the weekend that just kind of blew everybody's mind. I mean, I think that it really does set the stage for a what if scenario. A why is it a lot of questions, a lot of questions.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how I'm taking the news. Like, obviously, there was some shock value, and then you kind of sit on it for a little bit and have it kind of percolate. But I'm not quite sure, especially how they ended the first four phases, I guess, of the MCU, and with the kind of central cast member that was kind of holding the glue together was actually the glue for the entire first segment of movies. To have him come back, and I guess we might as well just say that it's RDJ. He's back as a pivotal character in what will be the next Avengers, and then I guess a handoff into Fantastic Four movies if he lasts that long. It's a bit of a shock, especially for the character that he's going to be portraying as Doctor Doom.
Yeah. So remind me, Steve, was there a storyline where Tony Stark became Doctor Doom, or because I know that many characters have in different Marvel universes, right, have actually swapped places in their universes. So I'm not sure. Was there can you recall at any point if there was actually a storyline where Tony Stark, was actually Doctor Doom, or replaces Victor Von Doom, because you know it would be it's one of those things where it's very hard to do, right? Chris Evans has played two Marvel characters. More on that later, I guess. But there have been multiple characters played by multiple different cast members. Um, this would be another example of that, where Robert Downey Jr. is playing one character from a different franchise entirely. Um, there's also something to be said that is he Victor Von Doom or is he Tony Stark, right? And I think that's really the question that a lot of people are gonna come up with, like who is Doctor Doom, right? That I think is going to be the crux of the entire return of Robert Downey Jr. If he's playing Victor Von Doom, it's not outside of the realm to imagine him doing so, right? We've seen actors being replaced too. I mean, Rhodey was played by one actor in the very first Iron Man film,
Terrence
and
Howard.
shortly thereafter he was replaced by Don Cheadle, right? Who took on the role for the rest of the MCU run. So again, it's not like we haven't replaced actors before. I mean, even recently, um, uh, you know, uh, Everett Ross is now played by Harrison Ford, right? In the latest Captain America, right? Prior to that, he was played by help me out here, Steve. What was his name again? Um,
William Hurt,
William Hurt,
the
who
late the
passed
late
away.
William.
The late William Hurt. So it's one of those things where we do have actors being replaced and or reprising roles or what have you, right? So Night One says there wasn't a what if story that involved a mind swap. Okay, um,
Yes, that is true.
so so if that's the case, right? Are we looking at that scenario here? I don't think that's gonna. I don't think that's actually what's gonna happen here. Thoughts, Steve,
Well,
on
that'll be
is
pretty hard
RD?
to do as a mind swap.
Yes, for
Like
sure.
it'd be pretty hard to do a mind swap since uh, I guess Stark doesn't exist anymore. He's passed on. My whole thing with it is Stark's like Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor, right? Stark was a pivotal character, but if you're an FF head, you kind of want Victor Von Doom out of Latveria with those kind of ties. And so I'm not quite sure how they're going to do it. I also know, and I'm not sure if this is the Kirkman version, which if that's the what if, but I know Kirkman did a storyline where Stark was Doctor Doom. I don't know. I just feel as though if you have a top three villain like Doctor Doom, and I'd probably rank him just behind the Joker and Lex Luthor in terms of being an iconic villain. You kind of want him to stand on his own 2 feet and not come in as a variant. I can see that as something like maybe down the line as a reveal, but not to start off because his history with Reed is kind of like the one of the main driving points of what makes the Fantastic Four exactly as special as it is, especially when you then roll in the fact that I guess second child, Reed and Sue's second child, was delivered by Victor Von Doom.
Yeah.
So Valeria. So
Valeria. Yeah,
it's
Valeria.
it it's it's an interesting kind of twist. I think from a business point of view, it makes total sense. I'm
There,
not sure from a storytelling point of view.
yeah, yes, for sure. I think that what they're doing here is taking a massive risk. But I have a funny feeling either A, this is a completely different universe, right? Which we've rebooted into. You know what I mean? The prime timeline, which is hinted at very heavily in Deadpool. For those of you who are going to watch it, I don't think that's a spoiler. I think that everyone's figured out that this is somewhat mixed with Loki, the television series. Um, so I think we possibly are looking at a different branch. I mean, we've seen through Multiverse of Madness a completely different Reed Richards, right? Who met his end. For the spoilers, I don't know. I don't know if this is a spoiler anymore. But basically, spoilers ahead. We're going to talk about a lot of MCU stuff tonight. Multiverse of Madness. Just if you haven't watched it, go watch it. But you do see an incarnation of Reed Richards, and it's never really actually established if he was finished off in that film. It was very heavily implied that he's not coming back. But this just tells you that there are multiple universes out there, multiple different versions of, and Deadpool did a good job of showing that too. There are so many different iterations of different versions of those characters. Juggernaut's not the same. Neither is obviously Captain America. We find out is not the same. He's a different person, right? There's a lot of things happening in that movie. Gambit is not the same, right? So
All
there's
Wolverines.
yeah, multiple Wolverines, multiple Wolverines, right? Again, not giving away too much, but you guys should definitely check out the film. Giving you guys,
It
but
is a must watch.
it is a must watch, 100%. If you've ever wanted to see your favorite version of Wolverine, I'll tell you right now, you get to see them in this film. Like seriously, it's fan favorites everywhere. But that's as far as it'll go. Um, as far as RDJ goes, I have a funny feeling what they're probably going to do is he is Victor Von Doom. I think that it would be dumb. It would be dumb for him to be Robert Downey Jr. I think that would alienate a lot of people because, as you said, Steve, I think RDJ, and in the words of Deadpool, he was the pivotal character. He is the pivotal character of his universe, right? You guys can try to figure that out when you watch the film. But and for his epicness to have, because that his farewell was the end of the MCU as it was in that scope, in my opinion. The direction they're taking in now is not the same direction it was while he was around, right? Even Spider-Man, I mean, it hit him the hardest, right? There's so many different aspects of Tony Stark that just are not able to exist with him around, as it is right now. Um, and there are rumors going around right now. I don't know if they're true or not, but apparently there is going to be a Tony Stark in this universe. What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
I'm fine. I'm gonna drop one of the comments. I think it's from Night One, and basically, Marvel being able to use variants of characters does open up infinite possibilities, and that's exactly true. And so, basically, I think all bets are off. The whatever you think can happen is probably possible, and maybe not even on the table because they can go in any direction. My only my only kind of reservation is are they riding this horse too long? Like, does another actor not need to come in and be part of whatever they're doing next as like their lead villain? And then how does that affect characters like Spider-Man when he shows up and meets I guess Robert Downey Jr. Doom, right? There's a lot of questions. And then if this is the case and you can replace characters willy nilly, where's T'Challa? Why can't we get another T'Challa? Please, can we get him recast? That's what I would kind of want.
Yeah, but T'Challa is all like, again, in the Prime universe, T'Challa is no more, right? I mean, it's exactly like, is it Robert Downey Jr.? Sorry, is it we're talking about, is it Tony Stark? Right. I think up until the point where they start bringing out trailers, we're never going to know who this is yet, right? We don't know if it's Victor Von Doom, right? We don't know if it's Robert Downey Jr., right? And once that's actually revealed, that is when the can of worms will either open up or they put a stake in the ground saying, this is faces mean nothing. You know what I mean? Faces are actors can be reused and repeated when required, especially if we need a boost, a shock to the system, right? And is that I think that's where we really have to say, as fans, is that what we actually want? You know what I mean? Do we is and again, as you said earlier, RDJ is an incredible actor. He can definitely pull it off. I have no doubt in my mind that he could pull it off. He's played characters who are just absolutely evil in the past. You know what I mean? He's played ridiculously stupid characters as well. So I can definitely see him doing a megalomaniac, ruler type, egotistical, mad scientist. I can totally see that 100%. And then dealing with magic and everything like that, it'd be great. It'd be amazing. Um, you know, but I think the real question, as you've mentioned earlier, is this the right move? And I think that's really what we have to discuss here tonight. Is this the right direction for the MCU? And that's where a lot of people are going to have a lot of questions. I think Aaron Hardy has a good question.
The problem is that the more complicated movies get, the less people like them. It's very risky financially. Well, you're not wrong there, and I think that's probably one of the benefits of Deadpool and Wolverine, because on its face, it's not a really complicated movie, right? There are probably more plot holes in it than a golf course, right? But it's still entertaining. It's a lot of fun. For someone like me who is a big comic book fan, there are even like 3-second scenes or 4-second scenes in there where I'm like, yeah, and you're totally happy to see them. But to the overall, plot, beginning, middle, end, all that kind of stuff, it's definitely lacking there. But it's not anything where if you're in it just for the experience of these two guys beating the crap out of each other, and then getting tons of fan service, then this is the movie for you.
No, I totally agree. You're not. This is a popcorn movie. This is not a movie which is going to define the MCU in any meaningful way. No, this was a nod to all the fans and a love letter, if you will. And because of the character of Deadpool, you can get away with it, right? The man breaks the fourth wall. The character himself knows that he's a character in a movie. He knows that he's a character in a comic book. If you guys don't understand that, you'll pick that up pretty quickly when you start watching this version of the film, because even in the past films, he sort of only hinted at the idea that he knew what was going on. Here, he literally tells you to your face. He grabs the camera. He does a whole bunch of things which break the fourth wall specifically, and basically remind you that he is one of us. He's actually an audience member who happens to be in the film, and because of that, we're allowed these moments. We're allowed these fan services that you would never get in any other film. I think we might have gotten that in Multiverse of Madness a little bit, because we for the first time we saw the X-Men directly interacting with MCU characters, right? And they weren't candy coated at all, right? They were definitively who they were. But you know what? I really suggest, like what Steve said, watch this film. Watch Deadpool. Deadpool is a fun ride. It's literally a roller coaster, and it's meant to be one. It's a lot of fun.
There's even a DC reference in one of the scenes, and Deadpool's lines basically mirror how I think a big portion of the fan base feels about how a particular actor was treated by a particular studio linked to another comic book studio. It was pretty on point and pretty blatant.
Yep.
Even though he wasn't playing the character that he normally does.
Yeah, but it was also another way. Like, a lot of people have been hoping to see him in that light anyway. So again, there was a lot of things. Full fan service. At the end of the day, it was amazing fan service. I think Drock 8012 881 2000. I do think everyone needs to remember that these movies are movies, but they were comic books first. Characters die, come back, clones, multiverse, what ifs, comic books and TV series. Yeah, but you know what? The for the most part, at least in the DC in the MCU, they've been pretty good about not bringing characters back. You know what I mean? It's once you've moved on, you've moved on. I think they've only brought back two characters because of the multiverse. If I'm counting correctly, Steve. I think honestly, Gamora is really the standout character who's actually come back.
In some way, yeah,
yes.
due to a time.
Yeah,
travel.
I think, and she's still around technically in the prime timeline, but
I guess Thanos would be the second one.
Yes, but as you said, for a time, right? Again,
yeah.
But by that notion, the entire Thanos, the whole army came back, right? Everybody came back, right? His entire legions came back, right? But I'm talking about meaningful. I guess what I mean is in a meaningful way, like in another movie entirely, right? I'm hard pressed to think of any other character that's actually come back, fully. I guess you could argue Loki definitely came back.
Yeah, with those three. Those are the three that have been plucked out of the past and brought into another future, which I guess would create another branch, or in some cases. But
it's an interesting time, and again, even Wanda technically is existing in another timeline. So it is an interesting weaving that they're creating in the multiverse. Alberto Frias, how come we did not get a lone Griffin? Ask Mr. Fantastic.
It's I think he means the actor Ian Gruffudd, who was the OG Mr. Fantastic in the two movies that were done in the '90s with Jessica Alba.
Oh, as a cameo.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I don't know. it's possibly because he didn't want to. I mean, that can be a possibility. Or again, they had other plans for Reed Richards. Um, even Jessica. I mean, think about it. Jessica Alba didn't show. You know what I mean? But not to spoil it, there are enough references to Fantastic Four in the movie that you don't have to worry about that. So I think
Yes.
that alone should answer it.
Yeah,
It
most
could be
definitely.
yeah, it could be Iron Man Supreme Alberto. Um, I mean, yeah, I guess it could be. But then we're getting back into Iron Man, right? Interesting. Um, Bernie Lomax, he's got a long one. Honestly, I couldn't.
Yeah,
Go
okay,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go. You go ahead, Steve.
I honestly could care less about what Disney does with the Marvel Universe. I can't wait for Image Comics, a non-sellout company by none other than Todd McFarlane. New Spawn movie will be a blessing to comics.
That's a bold statement to say that any company doesn't sell out. You know what? I'm not going to say. I mean, Toddy Mack is a great ambassador. I'm not going to lie. He's a self-made individual. He helped to create an entirely new comic book in arguably the next phase of the comic book industry. The company of him, Jim Lee, and Rob Liefeld, and all those guys, Will Spartaccio, all those guys who really were the
Silvestri, Eric
yeah,
Larson.
exactly, all those guys who created Image Comics. It's arguable that without them, comics would still be, in the hands of Marvel and DC, right? It would literally be a two-horse race. But now we have companies everywhere. We have IDW, we have, we have
We've
Wildstorm. And
got
I guess Wildstorm is owned by DC now, right?
Yeah, but
Um,
there's Boom, there's Distillery,
yeah,
Titan Comics.
yeah.
Skybound's part of
Dynamite,
Image.
yeah,
You know,
Dynamite come back. So many different come up
Dark
so
Horse. There's a lot of companies.
yeah, and that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Image, right? But to say that Todd hasn't done questionable things in the past, that's not true. You know what I mean? Todd's made the deals that he needs to make, right? Um, and he's been talking about bringing Spawn back as a movie for the longest time. I mean, even this Comic Con, he's still talking about it, right? So, but it's hard to make films. It's expensive. It's not easy. So, he's looking for the right partners, and we'll see what happens.
Well, he's got Jamie Foxx attached to it, right? So, you know, it's in good hands that way. But there's so many moving parts to a film. Like a comic
Yeah,
book,
yeah,
there's what, like eight people, and then you can kind of get financing just by going to Kickstarter or whatever. But a film is a totally different beast.
millions
And
on millions of dollars. It's
yeah,
well, if you want to do it right. I
if you
mean,
want to do it right.
you can do a film as a low budget endeavor and still make something decent. I mean, like we've seen fan films which rival, at least visually, rival blockbuster Hollywood films. But will they gain the audience that they need? I think that's that's the difference. Because what if you want wide appeal and wide audiences to get yourself, you have to spend as much as you spend on the film in advertising, right? And then you have to convince theaters to take your film. That's, I think, the biggest problem with films, right? Convincing theaters all around the world to say, "Hey, take a chance on my film." It's not easy. That you have to have the right connections. You have to have the right, PR machine behind you.
Well, speaking of that, I want to just show, because Spawn's going to be a restricted movie, right? But just to show you what a restricted movie can do, I'm going to take a look at the box office for Wolverine and Deadpool, and it is crazy how much money that this. Let me just share it here. So we have got 50 million weekdays for a 550 million box office. So I'm not sure exactly how many days it's been out. Has it been a week? But I guess we can probably do the math on that. if we wanted to.
It's coming close to a week now. Tomorrow will be a week when previews started going up,
which is insane, right? When you think of that kind of cash for a restricted movie, it's absolutely bonkers. And so I'm sure Todd's probably looking at Spawn, and it looks like we kind of clipped out there again. But realistically, if the movie's done right, Jay, there's no reason why they can't get a fraction of that.
I'm not questioning Spawn's ability to generate hype. You know what I mean? But as we already know, their first kick at the can, again, it had a lot of potential, but just like anything else, the real problem with Hollywood back then was a comic book movie was considered a joke, right? That's the way the producers looked at it. Before the Matrix, everyone was like, nah, whatever, you know what I mean? The comic book movies, whatever. I mean, X-Men was probably the first real kick at and I really do attribute a lot of what Bryan Singer brought to the table there. He had a vision going in, and he really wanted to see that go forward. And he didn't want to treat them like spandex heroes. As a matter of fact, he made light of that multiple times, right? Anything that happened afterwards, that needs to be dealt with on its own. But in terms of really taking the MCU, I guess there wasn't the MCU yet, but taking comic book movies seriously around that time, it was rough. I mean, immediately after that film, there was two Punisher films which did horribly. You know what I mean? There was the Fantastic Four, which did moderately well, and then I think I'm hard pressed to find any the Daredevil was okay. Help me out here, Steve. What other films?
Elektra wasn't very good.
No, terrible, absolutely horrid. What else was there?
Well, the Spider-Man movies came around that time.
The Spider-Man movies were, but again, that was when Marvel really started taking charge of their own properties, right? But
that was still Sony. That was still Sony.
I know it's still Sony, but what I'm trying to say is that they understood that this is the property which really needs to be taken care of. You know what I mean? Like they brought in a great director in Raimi. You know what I mean? Who had an idea and had a vision for Spider-Man, and again brought it full circle with all the actors and everybody involved, right? And he treated it with a lot of respect, is what I'm trying to say, right? Whereas you look at a film like I had it at the top of my head just now.
Ang Lee's Hulk. Let's just say Ang Lee's Hulk. Use that.
Yeah, exactly. Hulk. That's what I was going to say. The Hulk. Yeah. So continue, Steve. That was the one that was noodling.
Ang Lee's Hulk was basically an art film as a comic book film, and I'm not sure it was the right character to kind of do as an art film. And you can kind of see that there were some elements that were great and some that just didn't work.
The Hulk, of course, is a fan favorite among all Marvel fans, and it's ironic that the Hulk has never had a standalone movie that could stand. Ironically, that could actually stand on its own. I argue that Edward Norton's Hulk was amazing.
I love that movie.
I love that film. I love the film. I thought it was brilliant. And again, there's another situation where you have a completely different take on the Hulk. You know what I mean? And it would have been interesting to see, but it was still somewhat incorporated. You could tell because the cameo at the end was Tony Stark, right? So they were starting to get that incorporation of leading into a multiverse, right? As a Marvel universe, right? An actual Marvel universe. And now Marvel movies are doing better than most movies, right? Marvel movies are given bigger budgets than movies ever. It's amazing how geek culture has really come full circle and really taken the movie industry by storm. The people are years ago. Again, as I said, comic book movies, fantasy films, anything that they were considered jokes. They were considered this is never going to win an Academy Award. Then all of a sudden, Lord of the Rings, sweeps the entire nominations that was made for. That's crazy. A clean sweep, right? We're talking like absolute pure insanity. The Matrix, right? Never won Best Actor or anything like that, but it did win a lot of technical awards, right? For best cinematography, best special effects, this and that, right? And it really opened up the eyes of filmgoers. Um, Avatar, one of the biggest grossing movies of all time, right? A fantasy science fiction film, right? Again, things really started changing like about the end of the 90s and onto the 2000s. It really is a brand new, a brave new world we live in right now. And at the end of the trail now the Marvel universe, which has been struggling as of late, is now looking for something else to really give it that boost, to give it to bring it back to its heyday, if you will, because the last couple of films have not performed as well as they expect.
Well, what's really interesting is, and this was something that apparently caused issues with like Ant-Man with Edgar Wright helming it years ago before he was replaced. But apparently, Ryan Reynolds' production company had a big stake in this film, and you can see that whatever he wanted, he was able to get. Whether it was the casting of some of the, Easter egg type characters, or the way that the script went, or some of the cameos that we were able to get, there wasn't any kind of a pushback from the suits saying, "Now we can't do that." It was kind of like, "Well, I'm kind of making this film. My production company's a part of it, and we're going to do it this way." And I think he had his finger on the pulse. Like, it's kind of like Henry Cavill when it comes to, oh my gosh, Gerald, the character. He understood that character better than the people who were making the series, and he was butting heads with them. Now he's not part of the series anymore, and apparently it's canceled, right? Even though they had, I guess it was Liam Hemsworth replacing him. So it's one of those cases where you're right. Some of those films, Peter Jackson is a perfect example, Christopher Nolan's Batman series, those are the films that every once in a while, when something lags, they come around and they just raise all boats with fantastic films that are not only just true to the source material, but also elevate it.
Well, I mean, like, I think you hit the nerve there for sure. I mean, look at the Snyder cut, right? The Snyder cut was never supposed to happen. It should have never seen the light of day. But Warner Brothers was like, we got like everyone's stuck. No one can do anything. What do we do? All right, how expensive is it going to make? Like Snyder's been asking to do this thing forever. It's not nearly as much as it's going to cost to do a full length feature film. Like he could probably do this in his basement. You know what I mean? Like that's the way they treated it. And look what happened. It went gangbusters. They had no idea it was going to be that successful, right? The response, everything about it was just, it really was. Not to say that Josh Whedon's cut wasn't fine. Look, if you look at Josh Whedon's cut, it was okay, right? But I have to say, everything that Snyder did, which apparently according to him was his original direction. I mean, it's the old saying though, Steve. Hindsight is 2020, right? So Jack Snyder, he could have seen everything and said, "Oh yeah, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. I don't want to do that again." You know what I mean? He could have done that. But if we are to believe what he said, right, then maybe his cut would have been the best, because again, he couldn't finish the film because of his daughter, right? So many different things happened along the way. So we just don't know, right? We'll never know what the original cut was supposed to be like, right? So, but the fact that he even got a chance to do it really shows you that it's a brave new world out there, man. Like anything that really demonstrated to you anything is possible. Like that was really supposed to be a director's cut. It was never supposed to actually happen, right? I think it was Jason Momoa who basically, "I've seen the Snyder cut. You guys have to see it," and just through that, right? Enough people were galvanized to actually want to see this thing made, right? So again, crazy. We live in a different world now, Steve. That would never happen before.
For sure. I'm going to take a look at Bernie Lomax's comment. There are so many other comics Disney could have done, but they stick with the Avengers is sad. X Force, Alpha Flight, Long Shot, just name a few that they could have made instead. I'm going to just say straight up, I want an Alpha Flight movie. I totally love Alpha Flight. Can we please get an Alpha Flight movie? I was kind of hoping for some sort of a Guardian or Sasquatch cameo
Oh boy.
in Deadpool and Wolverine, but that's just me. I'm flying the Canadian flag really hard and proud right now.
I know. See, there's the thing about that, right? There's the thing about that. So, I mean, I would love to see Vindicator. I would love to see both Vindicators. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I would love to see
Guardian
them
and
both.
Vindicator for sure.
Yeah, I would love to see them both. You know what I mean? Like original and where we are today. I would love to see any iteration of Sasquatch. You know what I mean? I would love to see the twins. I would love to see all of I would love to see Puck for crying out loud. You know what I mean?
Puck would be great.
Puck would be great, and of course that would be another wonderful, appropriate. I'll say it this way: appropriately sized character. I think that would be freaking amazing. Yes. And it would be even funnier if they made him 6 foot tall. I mean, just as a joke, right? But the reality is, Canada is it's another world, man. It's another freaking world. You like, I'm gonna say this out, right? And it's not a popular opinion, but I think Americans support Americans. I think that's really what it really boils down to. I think that when you're talking about homegrown talent, there's definitely something to be said about Alpha Flight as a film, but I definitely would think that they would need to. Well, here's the way I would play it, and agree with me or disagree with me if you want. I think they should show up as a background, not background, but as a supporting team for the Avengers. Like there's a crisis,
X-Men.
and yeah,
X-Men.
X-Men too, right? Either or,
yeah.
Right? They should definitely do that, right? They should become, a supporting team, showcase everything that they're capable of doing, and really fix a crisis, with head high, right? And then all of a sudden, that gains interest to fans. You know what I mean? Who've never seen Alpha Flight before, right? And then there's national pride too. There's a whole bunch of things that happen when you introduce them as interesting characters, right? I mean, but I could be completely wrong. I mean, who would have thought the Guardians of the Galaxy could even be as popular as they are? I mean, the Guardians of the Galaxy, who are they, right? Like before they had their own film, they were just a team which barely anybody knew. All of a sudden, here comes sorry, what was the director's name again? He's
James Gunn.
Yeah, James Gunn. Yeah, the head of DC right now. The DCU. I mean, he comes in, makes a film about a team which nobody really cares about, and makes this and just makes it epic, right? Just makes it completely epic, like blows it out of the water. And maybe that's possible. Maybe there is room for a full Canadian team, right? And headquartered underneath Parliament, like you know what I mean? It's just so out there, right? But hey, there you go, right? It's possible, right? Who knows?
Yeah. And I think Night One agrees with you. Alpha Flight is a cool group that hovers under the radar to the general public, but it could possibly break through like Guardians did. You guys are on the same tip, for sure.
Just a tip. But but yeah, no. I am excited. Steve, let's just get to the point. I'm excited. I'm excited about RDJ's return. How it happens, I'm not sure. We're gonna have to let the filmmakers figure that out. But on that note, though, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Is this a Hail Mary, Steve? Is this a Hail Mary on the part of the MCU?
It could be. But I also think it's also tied to the business aspect of it. And apparently, RDJ and the Russo brothers were a package deal. And the Russo brothers, with Infinity War, they delivered. I think they also did Winter Soldier. And so if you're going to have their next big kind of like crossover spectacle, why not have those two helmet? And if RDJ is going to be at the center of it, then I probably can see how it's going to work. It's outside of my scope at this point, and so it does seem like a bit of a Hail Mary, only because with the FF now coming out, Pedro Pascal, um, that movie coming out, I kind of wanted to have, and especially since they got Galactus right, or at least it seems so from the trailer, I wanted them to get Doctor Doom right, but we'll see what happens. I think it's a Hail Mary, but we've seen a couple of those get caught for touchdowns and win championships, right? So
Yeah.
let's see what happens.
Yeah. So the fireworks show. The hinting at an actual physical Galactus this time instead of some entity that just roams space. Um, yeah. No. I'm excited about you know, but it is that kind of thing. Ant-Man, just like anything else, Giant Man is a stretch. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to wrap your head around a gigantic being that devours worlds. I mean, devours worlds is a that's like onomatopoeia. That's like it's a figment of your not figment. It's a what do you call it, Steve? It's actually a it's he's not technically. I guess he is technically devouring worlds, but the reality is he's taking its energy, he's taking its lives. He's not
He's
really going
kind
around
of
like
doing,
he's not Unicron. He's
yeah,
not freaking.
he's not, yeah, he's not Unicron or like popping Timbits in his mouth,
Yeah,
right? Galactic Timbits,
no,
but he's kind of like what the Celestials were doing,
yeah. They take
right?
the
In the
energy or
Eternals.
the whole the essence of the planet is destroyed and used as fodder for them. Right? He is
Amen.
a yeah. So
He's not a cloud, so he's not a cloud, so I'm good. Because that cloud, wow, you talk about absolute disappointment.
yeah,
For sure. For
yeah.
sure. But speaking of, I want to go back to a previous comment by Night One. And Night One said that the old Spawn HBO animated series did spawn R rated correctly, right? And I think when it comes to just because we're talking about this with FF and Doom, once you do the characters properly, you really have no like cause for any kind of concern or consternation. You just want what you read in the books to be represented well. And I think that's where you're on the nail, you're on the nose with Guardians is not only do you go in there with kind of low expectations, but they over delivered on what we thought we were going to get in those comics on the screen, and it totally slaps. And I think when you think back to like a lot of the greatest animated kind of versions of characters, Batman the animated series, the Spider-Man series of the '90s, X-Men '97, right? The Fleischer Superman cartoons. A lot of the live action ones that we're talking about, those are the ones that stick in our memories, forever. And we keep going back to those. Chris Reeves Superman, as an example, right? They're seminal. And you just want the characters, when they come on screen, to be not only treated with that kind of reverence, but also represented that way.
No, I totally agree. And it is pretty telling. As you said, we keep coming back to it, right? There's a reason why people keep rewatching these films over and over again, and the Guardians again. And the other thing that I was really surprised with, Eternals. Here's the thing, I liked Eternals. You know what I mean? I thought Eternals was an interesting film. Here's the problem.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. It's not a Marvel film. If it was any other film, right, that had nothing to do with the Marvel universe, it would have done. I feel it would have had a better audience because it's under the Marvel license and people have a certain specific flavor for Marvel. They're sort of jokey. They're sort of big action kind of thing. I think that's where Marvel. That's where the Eternals really fell on its face because it was trying to tell a completely different story. And it was trying to set something up. It really was. I mean, even the cameo at the end really was leading into more of a Marvel situation. But because it really had to tell a story from the beginning, a lot of people just didn't get it. You know what I mean? I really enjoyed the Eternals, and it set up a lot of great characters, right? The Black Knight and who was the one at the end, Steve? It was
Oh, Star Fox.
Yeah, Star Fox, right?
Yeah,
I mean, a
Thanos'
lot of
brother.
yeah, a lot of great characters, a lot of great characters who would eventually, become amazing, storylines in themselves. As it is right now, I don't think they're ready to go back to anything Eternals. I think that we might see a glimpse of them here and there, but I think that's about it. The Eternals will not have another movie.
It's a one
You
and
know,
done.
yeah.
Although I did see today that Brie Larson's Captain Marvel will be featured in the next two Avengers films. So they're going to be bringing everyone together again, right? It's going to be another Royal Rumble of MCU characters to take on whatever threat RDJ or whatever it is, maybe even behind RDJ, that's going to be the central antagonist of those movies.
Do you should we talk about Secret Wars, because this is all leading towards Secret Wars.
Absolutely.
We know it's leading towards Secret Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in Secret Wars, I mean, if we're to follow the original Secret Wars, to a certain degree, right? Doctor Doom will do something freaking incredible, right?
Yes.
Absolutely unthinkable, right? As we all know. Um, and is that really what's happening here? Are they setting up everything for Secret Wars and the eventual,
I
you
think
know,
so. I think
timeline?
it's gonna. I think so. I think he's going to be one of the reasons why all the timelines get brought together. Like in the books, that's why Miles Morales is in the 616 universe, right?
Yep.
So I see that as being their, for lack of a better word, their end game, at least for this phase. Because what it does is it allows all the Fox properties and the Sony properties to kind of interact with each other now, and you don't have to worry about any kind of like inconsistencies with the origin stories. Like, where was Fantastic Four when the Avengers were being formulated, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's where they're going.
Mhm.
How they get it done, I'm not sure, but I have a feeling if the Russo brothers are involved, it's going to be really well done.
Yeah. I have no doubt about that. Um, but being as ambiguous as we can be, um, it it's interesting how Doctor Doom really hasn't been featured as much as we would expect. You know what I mean? Like, as a prime evil character. I mean, he's done things which no other like MCU character has done before in a lot of ways, right? So the fact that they're setting it up in a lot of ways for the Secret Wars as it is, um, it'll be interesting to see how they tie this all together. I mean, Galactus is going to be involved, and then this we keep talking about entities and beings and celestials and things like that. So it'll really be interesting to see what happens with who is the prime character, who is the the I guess I'll just say entity. Who's it going to be, right? What type of storyline are they going to create? Because they've been very, very, very. They haven't been shy about talking about Celestials now, right? They keep talking. They hit at them here and there, and again, the what's it called? It's really too bad that Kang, uh, the whole business with Kang and his actor went down the way it did, because it really would have helped, uh, because everything's kind of got muddied with that right now. They've kind of had to sidetrack or move laterally for that for a while, because I thought the setup for that was actually well done. You know what I mean? Like, whatever happened in what was it called again? Ant Man. Uh, Fusion 5000. What the heck was it called again? Like,
You mean the last movie with Jonathan
yeah,
Major,
yeah, what was the title of that film again?
Quantum Mania?
Quantum Mania. Just a weird freaking title. I actually,
Mm,
the setup for Kang there was actually pretty good in my opinion. I thought
the finish was terrible, though. Oh
it
my god!
was, but he himself, I believed in that character. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
When he came on, I think that out of all of them, I think that he was the most believable out of that film. I mean, you could tell that this man is evil beyond belief. You know what I mean? He's just waiting to get out, and he's gonna fuck shit up. You know what I mean? Like, if he ever gets out of here, he is gonna destroy worlds. Like that's you could feel that kind of gravitas from.
it'll be interesting though to see if a variant of, because I can't see them going back to Jonathan Majors.
No,
But it'll be
not
interesting to see
now.
if a variant of that character finds its way into the Avengers movies, because you rarely have one villain, right?
No, you're
So
right.
he might be, you know, hench number two or whatever before you get to Doctor Doom, or maybe he then gives rise to Doctor Doom. Who knows? Whomever they get to play him, but it should be very interesting.
Well, Doctor Doom and Kang have had their run-ins before, right? So it at the end of the day, it will definitely be an interesting play with either of those characters. And I have heard rumor that they are thinking about using Kang again, but with multiple different actors. Like he'll be portrayed by multiple different personalities, right? Which I can see that happening. It's not like he has to be pigeonholed into one character. Um, but as with that, right? It'll be interesting to see what they finally do with Galactus, with Kang, with all these wonderful this tapestry of new villains that they can tap into now that Avengers. We can talk about West Coast. We can talk about different factions and everything like that, right? So it's the possibilities are endless. We have a brand new palette to work with, and we've seen a glimpse of it in different movies like Deadpool and such. So, and now
For sure.
with RDJ making his return, again now anything is truly possible. I guess we'll see how that goes.
For sure. I just want to get to some of the comments. We've got
Sure.
some pretty cool ones.
All right. Go for it.
Nolan said Batman TMNT was a good movie. Yeah,
Yeah, it was.
agreed.
It was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Um, this one from night one, I still remember the Gamma Dogs fighting Hulk. I can't lie. That is the standout scene from that Ang Lee movie for me.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
This
it
one, The
had its moments.
Crow.
It had its moments. The Crow.
The
Yeah, but
Crow was a good flick.
the Crow's that's not even that's not DC. That's not Marvel. That
No,
was
no, no.
independent.
Well, but that's an indie book. It was off
Yeah,
an indie book.
yeah. It's great. It's great.
Here's another one. Again from night one. It does suck that there wasn't a proper Justice League versus Darkseid final battle in that movie to end it. That movie was kind of a bit of a muddle, and I think just too many filmmakers with the Josh Whedon versus Snyder version. Um, so that's how it goes.
Yeah, but
Um,
I think that it still leaves the door open for anything. The real problem is, I think they've cut ties with Henry Cavill, and unfortunately with that, I think that he was this generation's Superman, and it's hard to separate a lot of fans' vision of that. This new reboot for Superman, it's gonna mean a lot. I think it's gonna mean quite a bit. But a
Definitely.
lot of people are just hung up on that stupid suit, man. that thing is
Right.
just making the rounds. It's getting ridiculous.
Here's an interesting question. Stephen J., do you think they could do a Wildcats movie? That would be
Oh,
really interesting. I
what
can,
arc? There's so many arcs. There's so many arcs you could take with Wildcats, though. I mean, like, the Hellspawn arc is there. So is the Zealot arc. There's
yeah,
the Grifter arc. There's so
yes.
many different arcs you could take. The Brood. They're not the Brood. What were they called again? They're not the Brood. But they're another. Anyway, there's so many different takes on that.
I
I think
could I could see them being sprinkled into whatever Gunn's doing though, because they're DC characters now, right?
true. True.
So I can see them showing up much like they do in the animation, where you get Grifter showing up, but you don't get the full team,
No, never.
right? I can
Never.
definitely see that. This is a great comment here from Sci-Fi George. Alex Ross created a story about Galactus where he drains the life from worlds that carry the celestial seed as a countermeasure to keep the celestials in check.
Hmm. That's interesting.
So that's interesting too, because that's something that can also be played on if they ever bring Galactus back for something else other than what the FF movie will be.
Yep, for sure. You could be almost an anti-hero hero a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. Yeah.
Drock 812,000. Different mask, same task. Yes, he did say that, and he did say
Yeah.
that for a reason, right? So
Yeah, he did.
let's see how that
Right.
plays out. Um, do we post anything that has a spoiler in it?
Well, um, which one are you? Which? Oh, that.
Bernie Lomax.
You know what? You're talking about Bernie's comment.
Yeah.
It's already in there, but no, let's Bernie. We'll like. I'll just say, um, it was funny. I'll say it that way. It was funny.
Yes.
Bernie,
Yes.
it was funny. It was not. Was not expecting it. I'll say it that way. I don't.
Yeah.
Did you
No. No.
expect? Like I didn't.
No.
I didn't.
And especially the take,
Yeah.
the take that they took.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one necessarily coming.
Yeah. I thought it was. I thought it was well done. I thought the way the way Deadpool led was leading into it. I was like, oh crap, right? And then it happened. I was like, dang, that was good. Actually, that was really good.
Yeah. There's another one here. Jonathan Chong says they, Marvel, said Kang's storyline will continue in some capacity, but without that actor. Yes, unfortunately, they will be changing directions, but Kang will continue to be there.
Which is good. I think that's the right choice.
Mm-hmm. Hold on a second. And this one, this is a good one. Jay made it back from Comic-Con in one piece. You survived, Jay.
Just barely.
Jay's healing factor is stronger than
Yeah.
either Deadpool's or Wolverine's.
I
So
hope
there was
so.
no way that Con Crud was going to keep him down.
I hope so. It is getting better. But thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, bro.
Now, there's also something I wanted to, because you just, speaking of San Diego,
Sure.
DC had one hell of a presentation in terms of announcements, and they released a trailer for the new Batman flick. So I'd like to show that
Sure.
for our audience who may not have seen it online yet. And then we can chat about what we think of it.
Sure.
Okay, we're good to go. I'm going to get her rolling.
Did you come in? Crap. Help! Help me! Someone!
Who's behind those explosions?
Oh, God! Who? What are you?
3 buildings blown to pieces. You falsified the reports. Who paid you?
Are you crazy? Pull me up!
Give me a name.
Just pull me up! Oh, God! Hurry, please!
I won't ask again.
It was a penguin! It was a freaking penguin! Oh, God. Oh, my God.
If you're lying to me, I'll be back.
Great scene. Great scene.
Hang on a second. There we go.
That
no,
was
I thought that was pretty good.
That was incredible. No, you know what? Kevin Conroy, no one's going to be able to replace him, but still, what an amazing performance.
Yes.
I very much hearkening to Batman the Animated Series. The direction, the design, the look. What's not to love in that clip? That's absolutely beautiful.
And also, too, they're paying homage, I think, to the old series, to the animated series, somewhat, and then going back to the character's roots with the short gloves, in his first appearances. But what's also interesting is that they're gender bending the Penguin. The Penguin is going to be a woman, voiced by Minnie Driver.
Oh wow!
So that's going to be an interesting take on how that character kind of is portrayed and then interacts with Batman.
Yeah, for sure. We live in an age now where here's the thing about comics, right? These characters are 80, in some cases 80, almost 100 years old now, right?
Yeah.
And some people are going to say, "Don't touch my characters," right? I like them exactly where they are. They should be the same characters that I've had when I was a kid, right? Well, let's be realistic. The characters that you grew up as a kid are not the same characters that were when they were first created. Even they've changed in a lot of different ways, right? So every generation has a different version of the Joker. Every generation has a different version of the Penguin, right? Harley Quinn is a brand new character, and she became one of the most popular characters in Batman ever. There's always going to be a portion of the fandom that's going to say, no, the Penguin is a fat, mutated, and in a lot of ways he's not, right? In a lot of ways he's just a fat, crime boss, right? Who just happens to waddle around a little bit, and has an affinity to birds, right? But at the end of the day, sometimes you need a new perspective. Sometimes you need a new character to liven something up. I think that if you're respectful to characters and what they represent, it can still work. Will this one work? Who knows? We're going to find out. But you know what? This particular director is going to take a shot at it. So,
well, the thing about it is, it's an Amazon Prime series, and it debuts tomorrow. So, if you've got Prime, I think as of maybe 12 o'clock midnight, it might be available. It might be maybe later on tomorrow. But it's one of those things where, and you're seeing it with things like The Boys and Invincible. When you have a film, you only have so much time to develop things. When you have a series, you then have kind of like the luxury to actually story build and world build. And with Batman, your world's already built, but you're able to kind of then, when you're making your little twists or your turns in terms of what people are expecting, you have more time to flesh that out.
absolutely. I believe as well, though, just circling back to your original comment, I believe it's around 3 a.m. Because usually what tends to happen is they launch it at midnight
For the West Coast, right?
California time, Pacific Standard Time. So if you're up at 3 a.m. in the morning to later this evening, you might be able to catch a glimpse of this series. I think is it the full series or is it 2-episode pilot and then they continue?
You know what? I'm not sure. I haven't had a chance to check how much they're going to do, but usually it's like 2 to 3 hours or half hours or whatever when they do it. So 2 to 3 episodes. I'm not sure what the episode length is. Might be half hour, maybe 45 minutes. I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's enough to give you a taste, to give you a pretty good idea of whether you're going to like it or not.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the direction alone, just the way it looks, the fact that it has those nods to the animated series, I think that a lot of people are definitely going to be at least intrigued. Because it has that, and the fact that who's playing Batman? Do we know?
You know what? I'll look that up.
Yeah,
but I'm not.
He's taking a nod to Kevin Conroy. He's still doing it on his own, his own version, but I think that goes a long way. I really do.
Yeah, I think it's Hamish Linklater.
Interesting. What's he done in the past? Do we know?
Let me IMDb him. The great IMDb.
Bernie Lomax, curious. You say that Jay?
So
He-Man is Adam is a woman, and a new one. Can you bring up Bernie's comment? I'm interested to. I would like to reply to that.
Hang on one second. He's been in The Big Short, Battleship, The New Adventures of Old Christine, Manhunt, American Horror Story, Marvel's Wastelanders, the podcast series, which featured, you guessed it, Doctor Doom, So he's been around the comic book block quite a bit.
Nice.
So
Nice.
which one did you want me to highlight?
Bernie Lomax.
Bernie Lomax?
Yeah, 11-11. Curious you say that, Jay. So if He-Man, if He-Man Adam is a woman in the new Motu movie, you wouldn't have a problem with that. It's 2024, might happen. You know what, Bernie? I'm going to go ahead and say that I will always give anything Motu a chance. All right. Just keep it up there for a second, Steve.
Sure.
I am always someone who's going to give the half glass full attitude. That's always been me. I'm not going to lie, I gave Thundercats Roar a chance. I have a 3-episode rule. Everybody knows this about me. I have a 3-episode rule. If it doesn't catch me in 3 episodes, I drop it. I dropped Thundercats Roar in 2 episodes. It did not catch me. I didn't give it the time of day for the 3rd episode. All right. If the new He-Man actually has a female version of Prince Adam, I'm going to say, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to take a look at it. If I can't make it through half the film, that's the way that works, right? I've walked out on films before. I really have. And I've asked for my money back. I'm not even kidding. I've asked for my freaking money back. But for me not to at least take a look at it, that would be the exact same thing as almost 90% of the people who had criticized Master Universe Revelations, right? They didn't even give it the time of day, right? Saying that things like Kevin Smith is an idiot, Kevin Smith is ruining my childhood, Kevin Smith is blah 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 blah. You know what? Kevin Smith is a shock jock. Okay, he said things that would get people's attention. He said things that would get people and again, there was a lot of back and forth, right? But the reality is, and this is what I've always said from the time from the beginning of that whole controversy, at least give it a shot. If you don't give it a shot, what can you really complain if you haven't at least watched it? If you watched it and you still didn't like it, absolutely, 100%, you are totally within your rights to boycott the next set of films, whatever, right? That's your right. But I've always been of the opinion you cannot really judge something until you've actually seen it. And then there's always the opinion that, oh no, I'm not going to give the respect to that because it's not my He-Man, right? It's not my Batman. That's not my Penguin. You can go ahead and make that decision, but you are depriving yourself of the chance to see something great, if that's actually what it is. You're also depriving yourself of the chance to see something absolutely horrid, right? And then decide finally on your own merits that yes, that was absolutely horrid, right? And that was a waste of half an hour of my life that I'll never get back, right? Absolutely, I totally get that, right? But the reality is, can I go ahead and say that I will watch a He-Man film where Adam is a woman? Yes, I can go ahead and say that. 100%.
You know what's a perfect example of that in both things that you just touched on? Battlestar Galactica. When that first when it first showed up, the reboot, and people were in love with the Glenn A. Larson 70s version, and you had Starbuck as a male, right? You cannot tell me that Katie Sackhoff Starbuck doesn't have her own place in the canon of amazing, not only sci-fi Battlestar Galactica characters, but sci-fi characters, period. Yeah. And that was a gender bend that, to me, hit it totally out of the park.
You know what? These days, I'm not even going to call it a gender bend anymore. Like, there's no point. We're just talking about a new version of Starbuck, a new version of the Penguin, right?
Absolutely.
I think, pardon me. I think when people start talking about gender bending, I think that's where people get upset. Let's just call it what it is. This is not the same. This is not the same Penguin, right? This is a different Penguin. You know what I mean? That's the way it's going to be. And is this Penguin going to suck? Let's find out. Don't condemn something just because the idea doesn't jive with you at first, right? You might be depriving yourself of one of the best performances of a Penguin, the best character writing for a Penguin that you've ever seen, right? Something which really will capture your imagination, and you're depriving yourself of that chance. Again, if that Penguin turns out to be the worst Penguin that's ever been written, the worst idea of what the Penguin should be to Batman, then absolutely 100% stop watching it. But right off the bat, just to say, nope, that's not my Penguin, I don't want to watch it, that's still your choice. You can go ahead and boycott whatever you like. but keep in mind, you might actually be depriving yourself of a great experience, right? You might even be depriving yourself of the worst experience ever. But again, you'll never know until you actually see it. Well, I guess you'll find out, after the reviews come out, whatever. But the reality is, with specifically for Master Universe Revelations, so many false news and false reporting on that, just because people didn't like what was happening around it, deprived everybody who didn't watch it of an incredible series, in my opinion. All right, and people have watched it since, and they're like, why didn't I watch this earlier? And they have regretted it.
There's also this too, like there's so many people that work on those shows, right? Like watch them, give those people the chance to have their work be shown, and then sometimes it takes time for some things to like percolate and mature, and for the audience to catch up to whatever the vision was. And as Jay said, sometimes it just sucks, right? But not everything you're going to like, and not everything is going to be like an across the board hit. And some things are just like almost like niche hits where a very small portion of the population likes it, or of the audience likes it. But it doesn't mean that it shouldn't exist, because sometimes it just takes a long time. Music's like that as well too.
Yeah. Again, if it's your choice at the end of the day, you can choose to watch things. You can choose to boycott things. That's fine. But if 10 years, if 2 or 3 years down the road, you decide, what the hell, let's watch it, and you suddenly realize, shit, I should have watched this years ago. That happens too.
Right.
So I've always been of the opinion, at least take a look. Right? Like I said, I watched Thundercats Roar. I couldn't make it past the third episode, past the second episode. I couldn't make it. Right? There was just too many things which that style of animation just does not jive with me. The whole, I just don't get it. Like it's nonsensical to me. And that I'm not afraid to say that style of animation, that whole version of Nickelodeon, or whatever the heck you want to call it, it just does not mix in my wheelhouse for my aesthetic of cartoons. And I chose at that point, after watching it, I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna stop watching this now. Right? I did try watching Princess of Power, and again, the style of animation did not jive with me. The story, I mean, it wasn't that bad. It was still rather close to the original story in most of its original iteration. But it was a bit too childish for me. You know what I mean? It wasn't hitting the story points that I needed it to hit. But I think that there's a bias, and that's my fault. That's my fault for having a bias, and that's fine. You can have a bias, right? But I chose to watch it to the point where I chose to stop watching it. And the thing is, that's the thing about me. I will give something a chance, at least a chance. And if it doesn't catch me, then that's the reason why I stopped watching it. And that's one thing I at least suggest everybody. At least give it a chance.
Yeah, completely. And it's like that for comic books as well too, right? First issue might not grab you. Series might take a little bit. That first arc might not work. But if the creative team sticks together and part of it's at least slightly intriguing, you give it a chance, right? I think we're kind of conditioned now to have things blow up right at the beginning and grab you from there, right? I think that's and then if it doesn't get you in the first 5 to 10 minutes or whatever, you're ready to throw it away. But I think you got to give things a little bit of time, because a lot of times in these productions, everybody's trying to find their footing, right? It's like if you play baseball, you're not scoring 9 runs in the first inning. It'd be nice, right? But you got to play all 9 sometimes.
Yeah, and just like I said, I give it 3 episodes, right? If it doesn't hit me by the third, so here's a good example of that actually. WandaVision. WandaVision was very close to losing me. Here's what's the funny about WandaVision. WandaVision, I ended up skipping an episode by accident because I was on the second episode and like, what the fuck is going on with this series? I could not. I was like, okay, I get it. You're going through the stages of television throughout the decades, whatever, right? And then finally, like by the third episode, I was like, all right, this better catch me. And what happened was I ended up watching the fourth episode instead of the third episode, and thank God, because by the third episode, something actually happened, right? That doesn't leave me scratching my head, right? So then I was like, okay, I'll give it one more episode, and by then, the kids grew up or something. There was something tangible that I could grasp onto at that point. And then
you know what happened? You know what happened, Jay? You got into the 70s. You got out of like the I Love Lucy, whatever, and you got into a set of sitcoms in an era that you're like, okay, I'll watch the Brady Bunch.
You know what? No, there was hold on, Steve. I kind of liked the 50s. I kind of liked the 60s. The 70s were okay too, but it was just the first two episodes. They were so ambiguous, right? They just like until Rambo actually came into the scene, it was kind of like, what the fuck is really going on here? Like they had these little glimpses of things, these secret people or nightmarish things that are happening all like behind the scenes, and that wasn't enough for me. I needed a little bit more to keep my attention, because as much as these things, oh, it's a nice flashback, it's a nice, different world, oh, she's living in a picturesque idea. There was just no tension. There was no tension. There was no, there was not enough, is what I'm trying to say, right? We didn't find out about the other side, the other world, until later, right? So I needed more. And that's why skipping an episode really helped for me, because like I said, I had 3 episodes. And by the third episode, if I'd watched that episode, I'm pretty sure I would have stopped, right? That's why going to the fourth, I was kind of like, okay, shit, something just happened. I need to find out why that happened. And then, we found out about Rambo, and we found out about all these other characters that are actually behind the scenes, right? Jimmy, and all those freaking characters, right? And they're like, oh, okay, now I see what's going on, and now I want to continue watching it, right? So, again, it's like you said, sometimes you have to play all 9 innings, right? Sometimes you got to do that, right? Because again, I've done that before. I've quit on a series like a Game of Thrones, everyone's like, watch it. I started watching it, and I was not captured by it originally. Like, I had to keep slogging through a couple of episodes. Look here, as much as everyone believes this, sometimes violence and sex don't always make a good series. Okay, like that's not what always does it for some.
It's got to matter. It's got to matter, right? Jay. Keep to it.
I mean, it helps a lot. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, there has to be something of an actual narrative that really captures your imagination. And by the 5th episode is where I really started getting into it. You know what I mean? And like I said, it for a while it was like, I was like, okay, this brother and sister, they're doing some weird, funky things in the background here. But again, you can only do that so many times. It's a one-trick pony for a while. And I gotta say, Peter Dinklage is the one thing that kept me interested in that whole freaking show, man. If it wasn't for Peter Dinklage, I would have like, screw this show, man. This show's ridiculous, right? But he really did, like, he took that show and carried it on his freaking shoulders, man. That guy, genius, absolute genius.
No, he's great, and obviously you can find other things. Just to flip back to Alpha Flight, he'd be a pretty good Puck.
Oh crap! Oh, dude, if they don't cast Peter Dinklage as Puck,
he'd be pretty good,
or somebody of his caliber, then forget it. I'm not watching it. And he's already an MCU alumni. You know what I mean? Like so, It wouldn't hurt, right?
Mr. Sentinel himself.
Yeah, man. Well, he's freaking amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Hold on a second. We've got Jonathan. I found the new House of Dragon slow at first, but it picks up with more action in season 2. It's so good right now. You know what? It's really interesting. I was like you, Jay, late to the Game of Thrones party. So I went in. I went through a side door. I think I probably season 2 or 3. Like, it was pretty well established by that time, and so I binged it. Kind of did the same thing with Breaking Bad. Was not at the beginning, but binged it. Totally fell in love with it. But it was that last season that just left. Oh, hang on a second. It just left a bad taste in my mouth. Yeah, it was a hard watch. And because of that, I'm holding off on House of the Dragon. I'm like, I need to get it out of my system and then come back, because there's so much other great stuff to watch.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go sideways, watch other things, and then I'll come back to House of Dragon later.
Yeah. So I'm like you. I binged it because again, everyone was telling. Here's the problem with me too. When everyone tells me to watch something, I'm like, yeah, I'll watch it later because by the time they started watching it, it was already last season, and it was like you should watch it. I'm like, I don't know, man. At this point, like I'll be watching this for days while you're about to finish, right? Pardon me. So did the same thing, love it, and then like you said, last season was just questionable. Like so many things in that last season were like, what the hell just happened, right? But and you know what's really scary about that? George R. R. Martin still hasn't finished the damn book. What the hell's wrong with the guy? Like, what's it been? Like 6 years? Like, what the hell, dude?
Deadlines. We don't need deadlines.
How many more conventions do you need to go to before you realize, you gotta finish this damn book, right? Anyway, those residuals must really be good, and obviously they are, right? Like, and he's a consultant on House of Dragon. That's really what I think what happens is, and again, here's the thing: you don't want the House of Dragons to end up like Game of Thrones. Well, you know what? Finish Game of Thrones, right? And then maybe that won't happen again. But I will say House of Dragons is very interesting. It is slow, the very first season. I haven't watched the second season yet, but apparently, according to Jonathan, it is definitely a much more thrilling show now. But I'm a sucker for anything dragons, and there were very few dragons in Game of Thrones, right? You had those 2 dragons, but that was pretty much it, right? So every time you saw them on the screen, I was like, oh my god, this is dragons, right? And now you see dragons for days, and you see some of the biggest dragons you've ever seen in your life. It is actually rather grandiose, right? But I think there really was something endearing about a world without dragons all of a sudden getting dragons back. It's that kind of thing, right? Where they've diminished so much that they just the whole world had changed, right? I think that was what was very as I said, compelling about the House, about Game of Thrones. The House of Dragons. It's interesting again seeing, dragons at their peak, right? And the houses who originally ruled the lands as powerful as they are, and now the power play that happens between the families, the kinslaying, right? So it's an interesting thing. The one thing that's getting me now is Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. I watched the first season of the Rings of Power, and I'm not like an aficionado for Lord of the Rings, but I know a lot about the lore, so I have a unique perspective on that because I was watching it and I was like, that never happened. This never happened. What the heck are they talking about? They're like all this stuff that was happening. Galadriel, who the hell is this person this is not Galadriel. There was a lot of that going on. And there are a lot of talking about that. We're talking about changes and stuff like that. There were a lot of people, a lot of diehard Lord of the Rings fans who were like, this is not right. Like, how dare they? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there with my brother, who's also a huge fan of the movies. And we're both looking at it like, yeah, this is weird. This is weird. But at the same time, it's done so well. The cinematography is amazing. The costume design, the prosthetics, the direction is actually done really, really well. The story itself is not Lord of the Rings. It's not. Like, if you're looking for a Lord of the Rings, don't watch. If you are a diehard Lord of the Rings fans, don't bother watching this because you're not going to get Lord of the Rings. You're going to get this is a fanfic. Okay, the Rings of Power is a fan fiction. Like it is a what if story. What if Sauron did this? What if Galadriel did that? What if what's his name? What's it called? Elrond. What if Elrond went and did this? What if the dwarves were friendly to it's a whole what if story. It is a fan fiction, right? I'm not even afraid to say that. It is literally fan fiction. It has barely any connection to Lord of the Rings other than the characters' names. You know what I mean? That's actually how it is. But if you can separate yourself, and here's the key about that, right? Again, it's all about what type of fan you are, right? If you can separate yourself from the original material and say, this is a fan fiction, right? What if Galadriel did this? What if, like what I just said? If you can go ahead and say, okay, let me watch this with open eyes, let me see what happens here, and is it decent enough that I'll continue watching it? I want to see what happens in season 2. I do. Am I enjoying it the way I expected to enjoy it? The answer is no. I'm actually enjoying it for different reasons. I'm probably enjoying it because I want to see where they're taking it, right? And I'm still on the fence of whether I actually like it because I'm like, this is not Lord of the Rings. Like the mythos behind Lord of the Rings is so deep. It's literally this is the furthest thing from Lord of the Rings you've ever actually seen, right? They're writing their own lore in a lot of ways, and in some ways, there's a lot. There's a lot to take away from that, but in a lot of ways, you're pissing off a lot of your fans because seriously, if you were going to call it anything, don't call it Lord of the Rings. I think that's really where a lot of fans are having a hang up with. They're like, this could have been Lord of the Rings side story. You know what I mean? Where you don't call this person Galadriel, you don't call this person, Glorfindel. You don't call this person Elrond. You don't call any of these people the way they're called. You call them different people that happened around the time of Middle Earth, right? And if you do that, I think people would have been happier. But as it stands, they decided to go this direction, and that's where we are right now.
Is it a way though to bring in the casual fan? Oh, look, Lord of the Rings. Let me watch it.
Yes, I'm not going to say no. If you don't understand the lore, if you don't understand that the light of the two trees, um, you know, uh, is intrinsically connected to the elves, but not in the way that they say it is, right? If you understand that Galadriel is not a warrior, she's just a high elf who wields a certain power, right? If you understand that the dwarves were created by one of the many gods in Tolkien's world, and they actually really do not like elves for a very specific reason. Then you can basically say, sure, a casual fan who has no idea about that is probably going to enjoy this at a certain level. I'm enjoying it at a certain level, right? Is it going to bring you in to watch more? Probably, right? But you're inevitably going to have friends who do know way more than you do. And when they start talking to you about what actually starts happening, what's really going on, you might actually end up changing your opinion. It's tough to say, right? At the end of the day. But all I gotta say is I'm enjoying it at a different level. I'm enjoying it at the level of wow, these visuals are freaking amazing. This story is different, but I want to see where it's going because it'll be interesting to see where they end up. Because if they're trying to actually bring this where the original movies end up, it's impossible at this point. At this point that they're talking about right now, it's impossible to get back to where they were. So I'm curious to see if this is supposed to end up where it is when we actually get to the Peter Jackson trilogy. You know what I mean? Or going further back, the Peter Jackson Hobbit trilogy. You know what I mean? It's supposed to actually end up there, right? So I want to see where that actually ends up and if they can actually get there, which I don't think they can, right? So
Good question. You know what? Because we've been away from it for a little bit, let's take a look at some of our comments. Let's take a look at Bernie. Curious, you say about watching only 3 times to make up your mind. I'm not sure if he's asking, what do you think of X-Men 97?
all right, so Bernie, no, I said 3 episode rule. It's 3 episodes. I don't have to watch the series 3 times over. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I give it 3 episodes, and if it doesn't catch me by the third episode, I'm out. What do I think about X-Men 97? Holy crap. It's one of the best series I've seen in a very, very long time. It's an incredible series, especially if you've watched the original series from the very beginning. I thought that it's being very respectful. I think that a lot of people were worried about X-Men 97, and now I'm enthralled with it. What about you, Steve? What were your thoughts about 97?
To be honest with you, if you're an X-Men fan, you really have nothing to complain about right now. Wolverine, Deadpool, X-Men 97. What more can you say? Like, those are two absolutely stellar representations of the X universe.
Absolutely.
The question is, what's the next step, right? I guess when they enter the MCU, what's the next step? But for now, until you can get season 2, you got to go to the comics and just read what's being put out there, or go read old graphic novels. But right now, being an X-Men fan, you are absolutely in a perfect spot.
Absolutely. It's great. We have never been so spoiled with X mutants as we have right now. Because again, for a while, it seemed like the MCU wanted nothing to do with mutants for the longest time. It was actually, we were actually kind of devoid of mutant activity for the longest time.
For sure. Hold on a second. There was one that I just saw. Oh yeah. Watch next. We will see King Ghidorah and House of Dragons.
I would love that.
Me too. That'd be a perfect mashup.
I would love to see King Ghidorah. Yeah. Again, you know what? I would love to see Tiamat. The from Dungeons and Dragons in Game of Thrones. I would love to see those. Why not? Sure.
Why not?
Why not?
Rick Neverending Toys. Hi everyone.
What's going on, brother?
And then Jonathan says, "Hey Rick, how you doing?" And Rick's, we don't have to judge a book by its cover or its trailer.
You do have to see. You do have to actually watch it. You have to get to know it, right? You have to understand it.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, you don't like it. We don't have to be friends, guys. We don't have to be friends.
Yeah, no, totally. So, Jay, I just want to ask you something, because you were in San Diego.
Yes, sir.
And they just had the Eisner Awards, right?
Oh,
for the top comic book creators of the past year.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear anything about that on the floor? Was it ever anything that was like, things are being announced right now, come to a specific panel room? Or was it just like, if you didn't read the program, you didn't know?
You know what? It really is sad. Nothing is announced at San Diego Comic-Con. Nothing. Like, panels are not announced. If you're on the floor, the only announcements you hear are, the show floor will be closing. If anybody's missing their child, the standard, you need help kind of situations, right? It's not like back in the day when you were at Comic-Con. It's not like, even Fan Expo doesn't do that anymore. Like none of these larger cons actually care about the biggest things that are happening at the convention, right? And that's because access is very difficult. I think that's really the problem. You can't get into Hall H unless you line up the night before. Like, you have to sleep outside. Thank God the weather's nice, because you have to sleep outside just to get a chance to get into Hall H, right? If you watch some of my videos for this year, Steve, I lined up for 2.5 hours just to get a ticket to line up again to try and get an action figure. Ridiculous.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, here's the thing. I discovered this the other day. Check this out. So you can actually see a visible tan line now.
Oh wow!
On my arm.
So that's not farmer's tan. Is that toy lineup tan?
That's my shirt tan, because at one point I had my shirt up like this because I was actually. Yeah, you can actually see it. That's how long I was out there in the sun, right? You can see the visible line. It's literally right there. Yeah.
So now you've got to add like sunblock to your con. I guess your con pack, eh?
Oh no, I'm. Here's the come on, Steve.
No.
I'm Filipino. I'm a darkie. It's I turn black in the sun, man. Like that's how it happens. If I'm out there long enough,
melanin or no melanin, a little sunblock, especially the way things are nowadays, it's necessary.
No. That is not untrue. You're right. You're actually right.
Yeah.
I am peeling in certain areas, so that's not untrue. You're right. The sun, most of the there is a hole in the ozone layer, so we're not as protected as we used to be, and of course, skin cancer is a major concern for a lot of people. So, yeah.
But still, though, that's impressive that you got roasted like that.
Dude, I told you 2.5 hours in the San Diego sun. It was crazy. I mean, it's probably doubly worse for you now, right? Where you are, Barbados has got to be
Oh,
really hot.
it's so hot. You could cut the heat with a
Yeah,
knife.
that's the thing.
It's the most humid it's ever been. In all my trips down here.
Absolutely. But to say that there were any uh, visual, like audio cues or visual cues that anything was happening, no, nothing like that. Like,
And it's weird too because like I know it kind of defeats the purpose of being at the show, but I would have loved a live stream for some of those panels, including the Eisners, like just like the Oscars. You could go to the Oscars, but it would be amazing to see, at least a portion of this of the proceedings where people are being nominated and people are getting their awards. I would love to see like Artist of the Year or mini series of the year or something like that. But I guess that's something that will have to be pushed by the organizers.
even the Joel Schuster Awards, they're not broadcast or no, most of the time you just hear about it in publications or anything like that. I live streamed my panel, right? I live streamed my panel, and again, I didn't have very good reception. I couldn't count on the organizer to do that for us, right? I'm recutting it now because the audio quality was just so bad. I have a better idea for next year when I actually put another panel together, but
Right.
um, I think the other problem is, truthfully, that Comic Con is not. Even though okay, I'm gonna get roasted about this, but Comic Con is not really Comic Con anymore. It's more like pop culture. It's more of a pop culture icon than it is Comic Con.
Yeah.
Comics are. I'm not gonna say they're the lowest on the totem, but they're not as heavily the emphasis is not on comics anymore. It's not, right? It's on exclusives. It's on um, celebrities. It's on announcements, right? It's all about it's a lot of it has to do with that. But and I will say this: there are a lot of huge announcements for comics at Comic Con. But as I've just mentioned, nobody says anything about them, right? You have to know what the program guide says, and if you don't look at the program guide 2 weeks before, you're not going to know not going to know what's happening, right? I had to plan out my entire weekend based on the schedule, and it was a roller coaster for me. I didn't make it to everything. I did not make it to everything. Like some panels were on top of each other. It was crazy. It was an absolute crazy weekend for me. I wish I had the extra day, but it is so expensive, so expensive.
Yeah, yeah, I can see what kind of a cost that would be. Like if you're lucky enough to have that be your home
Yeah.
convention, right? Then that kind of works in your favor. I guess we're kind of lucky because Toronto's a pretty big con, or if you live in New York, the New York con's kind of big, and those cons are also easy to get to, depending on where you are. If you're like on the Eastern Seaboard, but to travel basically across, from east to west for San Diego Comic Con, and then accommodations, and then if you're in Canada, you have to worry about the exchange rate. You can see where that can kind of be a bit prohibitive. And I'm just going to put Jonathan's last quote here, where he says, "That's how Fan Expo works these days. They carry you in your dealer's room and spending money. Comic Con, you have to pick a hall to line up, and you don't get to see anything else because you're in a line." Um, that's kind of true. Like you will miss things, and if there's a conflict or if there's like a drawing contest, because I know they have a lot of those on Fan Expo, and you got to almost kind of choose what you want to see that year. And if by any chance you have a photo op, then you're going to miss other things because you're waiting in line for your photo op, right? You got to pick and choose.
Yeah, no, it's like any event. At the end of the day, things are going to overlap. Um, and yeah, you're not wrong. You got to pick and choose. I mean, like your priority level is where it's at, right? If you were hoping, if this was the only chance in your lifetime that you're ever going to see three of your favorite stars, in one place, right? Convenience is definitely a factor, right? But you really do have to choose who is the most important out of those three, because oftentimes their signings are at the same exact time. And even if you buy slots for all three, your opportunity window is only like half an hour or an hour. And you and I've seen it firsthand, Steve. Half the time they block you out, and what they end up doing is you're guaranteed a signature. They'll mail it to you, right?
Right.
They will mail you a signed copy. But you wanted to meet them, or you wanted to say, "Hey, I'm a huge fan," or get at least as close as possible, right? I mean, that's what you were hoping to do, but no, that's not how it works anymore, right? If you're
Unfortunately.
like if you watch my videos, Danny and I were there at the crack of dawn every day because we knew that we were trying to get in there just to get an exclusive, which would sell out by the first hour. That's how nuts it gets, and I had to pull some pretty big tricks. Again, knowing my way around conventions and everything, I had to pull some pretty big tricks to get into that hall before everybody else did. Right, so it was not easy, right? Because you'll notice when at one point, I'm there's a huge line ahead of me. All of a sudden, boom! I'm inside the convention center. How did that happen? Well, let me tell you, it wasn't easy. All right, so. And I'm not going to tell anybody how either, so stop asking.
Yeah, that's that information is on lockdown. But
Yes.
it's kind of interesting because you want to have the RDJs there. You want to have like the cast for Captain America, the Anthony Mackies, but you also want fans to go to meet the people that have made Anthony Mackie and Robert Downey Jr. relevant to the culture. And those are the artists and the writers that created those stories or are creating current stories, right? So whether you're like a Becky Cloonan or Fred Kennedy or Jimmy Palmiotti, anybody who's a comic book creator, and your work's there, you get to meet them, you get to even learn from them in turn. Like if you get to go to their tables and talk to them, the artists are open to meet their fans and meet the people that are interested in it. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of the stuff you would hear about like the old Disney artists that did the animation. And when you would go to Disney World, they're kind of off in a corner somewhere, not getting the kind of adulation that the person in the Mickey Mouse costume would get, or like the rides would garner. Like it would be nice if those people were the people that were getting a lot more shine.
It's funny, right? I mean, Steve, you and I have been, involved in comics and in popular culture for a long time, right? And it's only become recently that some of the biggest stars, right, have been writers, right? At one point, writers were kind of like, just pushed to the side. Nobody cared about writing. It was always
unless you were like a Frank Miller or a Marv Wolfman,
a legendary writer, right?
Oh my gosh, the names are slipping my memory right at the moment, right? But seminal series coming from like some of the biggest writers. But you're right. After Image, it was an artist game.
Yeah. It was because again they became superstars, right? The McFarlanes, right? Jim Lee was always just a force in and of himself, right? But the Will Portacios, all these guys, right?
Greg Pulo,
right? Everybody, right? Even someone like freaking Rob Liefeld, who again, like we all laugh about it, right? But I mean, the guy's got talent. At the end of the day,
not only talent, he's got his finger on the pulse, in terms of what people want.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Yep. And I don't care what anyone says. You can argue from an artistic point of view that some of the biggest artists aren't the best drafts persons.
Sure.
But their art connected to the public and some of the characters, because like Rob's also not just a straight artist. He's creating characters.
Yep.
Right. Those are the people that in however they have been able to translate what's in their brain through their arm onto the page, have people completely enamored with the world that they've built. Absolutely. And you can find a host of people that draw better than them, but they're not going to sell the same because their work doesn't speak to the audience.
Yeah, there was an energy that Rob brought to the industry, and that's exactly why he's as successful and it still has fans. No matter which way you cut it, he's got a lot of freaking fans, right? But as I was alluding to earlier, writers had no skin in the game at one point, right? They were just, you're a bunch of freaking typing monkeys, right? No, that's what a lot of the people were like, because people didn't realize the value that writers had, back in the day. Even Stan Lee, yeah, he's an editor, and Steve Ditko and all these guys who were making these wonderful comics. But it's not until later that they were really given their due. You know what I mean? Of course, Stan Lee being a front man and being out there and really pushing the industry as it was. But now you have so many guys like Silvestri and a lot of guys who basically were like, they led the way for a lot of people to say, hey, you know what, writing is integral, is absolutely important to comics. And now these guys are just as big as any artist out there, right? They have their, like, people come just to see these guys and talk to them about this storyline and that storyline and what you brought, the energy that you brought to this. I didn't think that I could get back into comics again, but you brought me back in because this storyline was so compelling, and I can't believe you made this happen, and that kind of thing. No one would have thought about that like back in the 90s or the 80s, right? It was artists, right? So it's incredible how we
there was that explosion though with like the Alan Moores, the Garth Ennis's,
yeah,
like where Frank Miller, even though he had drawn, but his writing on Daredevil as well as on Dark Knight, like those are stories that stick in everyone's minds. And you're correct. And a lot of times what used to happen is you needed a writer to be teamed with an artist that could translate their vision.
Yes.
Right? Like it's still a huge team, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a big process. Like you can have a great screenplay, but if your director sucks, good luck.
Absolutely.
And you get a bad cast, good luck.
Absolutely. Right? It's all in the teamwork that these people have, right? Again, because if you don't understand what they're trying to say, if you don't see it in your head, and you can't draw it, right, then it's just going to be wasted paper, right? At the end of the day,
I can tell you from personal experience, Atrium, which is the book that I've co-created with the crew at Comix Asylum, with Peter Van Horn and this is how tired I am, but Greg Parkin and and Vaughn Joseph, and also our superstar artist, Lucas Filappi. Without Lucas, we just have words and an idea, right? Lucas is able to translate what we wrote and created into some beautiful pages. Into the first 3 issues are absolutely gorgeous to look at, and then when you bring in our colorist, it totally finishes off where it started in our head, where it was an idea, and now you have something that's actualized. And so you need that full team to move forward to produce something. If you then produce it and then you still need a marketing team, that helps as well too, right? Because that's what gets you from kind of like out of the indie shadows into the spotlight. But if you don't have writers and artists working in tandem, then the medium suffers, and then you don't get Wolverine and Deadpool movies that can bring in 550 million.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's just a cyclical nature of shows too, right? Because as we mentioned, Comic Cons back in the day, right? They were all about the artists. They were all about the creators, right? Of these properties, and it was very much focused on the community. Now it's, as we mentioned earlier, casuals. A lot of people who are not fans. They're just they watch the movies, they enjoy the cartoons, they're not invested the way we are, right? And these mega shows, they're now catering to them, right? They're catering to the casuals, right? When you go to these shows, there's a lot of experiential activations that go on. Come to the TARDIS. Get transported to another world. This kind of thing, right? Get on the Star Trek, get on the Starship Enterprise, and take your picture with a Metreon. Things like that. Like all these experiential things that happen at Comic-Con. Take a picture in SpongeBob's house. Things like that. And it's very much detached from Artist Alley. Thank God. One thing I always said, and I said this in multiple trips to Comic-Con. I actually joked about it. So I was like, oh, thank God, there's still an Artist Alley here, right? There's still a place for artists to be in Comic-Con, right? And I was like, thank goodness that this is a small press section, where small artists can actually, showcase their stuff. Thank God that there's still a nurturing area where local artists, because again, you're not going to be, you can try applying from like a different state or whatever, but 90% of the time it's going to be a local artist who's there to show off their stuff, right? Thank God, right? Because that's where a lot of us get started. That's where a lot of us get noticed and started, at these shows. Like, a good friend of the channel, Michael Simbajon, right? He's doing such good work. And a lot of times, a lot of the connections he makes are at these shows.
Yeah.
Hugh Rookwood is another wonderful artist who does a lot of great business at Comic-Cons, right? Yourself, you're showcasing your work with Atrium, and of course your own pinups that you have at these shows, right? And this is where a lot of us get our start, right? This is how people find out about us. Thank goodness Comic-Con is still allowing for that, because I could easily see one day them just pushing them out and just not letting it happen, right? Which would be a shame. It would be a damn shame if that actually ever happened.
Absolutely. I'm gonna highlight Randall's comment here. Denny O'Neil, Steve Englehart, Jerry Conway, Len Wein, Chris Claremont, Marv Wolfman, and Paul Levitz are some of the best writers of the 70s. Absolutely. And then you can, throw in people like Roger Stern, who continued that stuff into the 80s. Their stories are some of the stories that they actually have mined for some of these movies, right?
Mhm.
And then on the artist side, Perez, who's also a writer in his own right, Starlin, Keith Giffen, Miller, John Romita Jr., Byrne's kind of like one of those rare. He's almost like the second coming of Kirby, where you've got great writing talent combined with amazing art. Jerry Ordway, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, who basically was the style guide master for DC in the 70s. So all the stuff that you saw on like bed sheets or anything that an artist drew from a DC character in the late 70s and 80s was basically off of Garcia Lopez's style guide. Great draftsman. Walter Simonson, another dual threat writer, artist. Jim Aparo, great Batman artist. And the loss of Don Newton and Dick Dillon. Yeah, like this is what I'm getting at. There's an endless line of creators that are almost faceless. It's one of the, like, I would say comics is one of the industries where you can be a megastar and nobody knows who you are. And what I mean by that is you can go to do your groceries, and unless someone saw you at the show, in Artist Alley or whatever, at a panel, they won't know what you look like. It's a lot better now. I know Wizard Magazine was one of those ones where you were able to see people's faces for the first time when they did their top 10s. But like, try being a K-pop star now, and go in a local variety store to go get something. You're going to get mobbed. Comic books is completely different.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say exactly what I'm going to echo what you're saying. Social media has changed the game 100%. If you are an artist and that's what you're known for, if you are a writer and that's what you're known for, there's an old saying in the industry that everyone has, like, you and I have great faces for radio. That's because nobody sees you, right? Nobody actually sees who you are, right? So you could be you could be a model. You know what I mean? You could have the face of a model, and no one would know who you were because no one's ever seen you. That's the whole game has changed, right? Um, like I'm always shocked. I'm always shocked whenever somebody recognizes it. And I remember Danny and I, we were going around Comic Con, and I would get stopped every now and then. And Danny, would joke as, "Oh, you're famous." I'm like, you know, the only reason any of that happens is because I have a YouTube channel, right? Like that's the only reason why it happens. But at the same time, it still shocks the hell out of me whenever it happens because who am I? I'm nobody, right? I'm a dude who talks about toys, right? Um, I can only imagine, as you mentioned just now, Steve, if you're a K-pop star, you cannot leave your house. There's no freaking way. Like you will immediately be bombarded by women and probably groped until you don't want to be out in public ever again. You know what I mean? Like,
Let's just say there's probably a handful of comic book creators who've ever had to worry about the paparazzi in the bushes outside their home.
sure, sure. I mean, obviously the Jim Lees, even Rob Liefeld, any of these guys who have changed the game, right?
Yes.
But and they were also young and are still considered rather like can still change the game today, right? But at the end of the day, it's one of these things where today, if you have even a small social media presence, it can be an interesting time walking into an environment where you would expect it to happen, right? I'll put it this way: whenever I bump into somebody, it's always in a place where you would expect it to happen, right? So, for example, if I'm just walking around a mall at a Toys R Us, there's a good possibility someone's going to recognize me, right? So, and that's when I'm like, oh, cool, dude, nice to meet you, whatever. If I'm at a convention, that doubles in exponentially, right? But it got really weird when I was in the middle of literally, I was in farm country, and somebody actually recognized. I was like, what the hell just happened there? Like that's where things got real. I was like, what just happened? And I was like, okay, this is getting strange now, right? Because if people are actually recognize you in the middle of nowhere, Canada of all places, Canada, middle of nowhere, like there's something going on, right? Social media is scary. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say here. All right, social media is a scary thing, and it's all fun and games. It really is. It's all fun and games as long as you keep it in perspective. You know what I mean? Like this is just a way to get information to people, and everything that we do here, you, Steve, me, everybody who truly loves what we do and truly appreciates the art form that we have come to uh, champion, right? We we do this because we love it, not because, let's not get this twisted, okay? You're not going to get rich doing this, all right? No matter what everybody, there are people out there who think, oh, you're Mega J Retro, you must bring in thousands of dollars a month. No, I don't bring in shit, okay? Like seriously, there's no money in this, all right? If you're going to do this, you do this because you love it. Let's just make sure that distinction is known, because you're not going to make any money off of this. You're not, all right? Going to Comic Con this weekend, I am in the hole big time this month. Okay, like I got to figure out what I got to do for the next couple of weeks. So all I'm saying is, social media is powerful. Social media is amazing, but go in on it. If you're okay, let me put it this way. I'm gonna drop it out to this, but if you want to be successful at this, whatever this is, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Twitter, TikTok, whatever the hell it is, be sure it's something that you love doing, because you're going to get tired of it pretty quickly. Okay, you are going to get really tired of doing the same thing over and over and over again, and just to get 200 followers, 300 followers, 1,000 followers. And trust me, it doesn't happen overnight. This is a lot of fucking work. Let's put it that way, and that's all I got to say about that. Because really, the reason that I do this, the reason that Steve does this, the reason that any of us want to do this is because we love this. All right, we love doing this. Right? Steve knows more about comics than I will ever know. I know more about toys than anyone should know. You know what I mean? There's just a whole bunch of things that you really gotta do, in order to actually, really want to do this. I think that's really where it is.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And we appreciate everyone who has been tuning into the stream, filling the comments. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to, sit in with us and chat. There's a lot that we covered today, and we've got some great streams planned for you in the next couple of weeks. And Jay, I think we should probably wrap it up because we're over the 2 hour.
Absolutely. But I did want to say, guys, that for those of you tuning in from my channel, Mega J Retro, please, we've had a lot of great discussions, a lot of great back and forth. A lot of people here are very invested in comics, as it's obvious by many of your comments. Please subscribe to Comix Asylum on YouTube. Because Steve doesn't just do this with me. They actually do deep dives and interviews with other great creators and writers and artists on Comix Asylum, the YouTube channel, as well as their podcast. So if you guys definitely subscribe to Comix Asylum on YouTube, and of course check out their podcast, because if you want up-to-date information on anything comics, and of course they have all the latest trailers that are fed to them, so you guys do not miss out on that. Definitely subscribe to Comix Asylum on YouTube, and of course all of their social medias, because you guys are gonna have a blast.
Yep, and any of our crew, the Comix Asylum crew, please subscribe to Mega J Retro. You're gonna get your fill of toys and toy knowledge. You'll become like a toyaholic before you know it. So it's all good.
Comics are cheaper. Comics are cheaper.
yes, they are for sure.
Are a lot cheaper.
All right, excellent. So I think we're going to wrap it up with that, and we will see you all next week.
Thanks, guys.
All right, great.